But one of the things that was changing over time was the story. And by the time we get to Twilight Princess, I think that's where a lot of us that grew up with this, we started to really think about it. It was like, well, why doesn't Link know Zelda anymore? And why, what's going on here? Like, where does this take place? It wasn't until adult fans that grew up with the games started to question these things that Nintendo would even consider putting out a response in any way, shape, or form as to what the heck was going on. No questions asked as a child. You just go in.
Rescue Look, listen, Mario. You go rescue the princess. You go beat the guy. That's it. He's the bad guy, even though Mario's really the bad guy. But we're gonna forget about that today.
Oh, but now she's in another castle, and you need to go and get her. Don't ask questions. She's in another castle.
Go get her. Forget about it. Go get her. Same thing with Link. Go get her. You don't need to know who she is. She's in trouble. That's just what heroes do. I always felt maybe this is the Star Wars background in me before I played Nintendo, but maybe it was. I just feel like the chosen hero was always just a random person, and you're that person, right? Like you're not by blood, you're not by royalty, or you're not a knight of any kind. You're just this boy who gets thrust into this awful predicament, but you're the only one, right? The Master Sword chooses you, right? That it's very, for me, it's very that nobody hero, right? That kid from the desert that nobody knew, right? It's very common in the hero's journey, right? I mean, you don't get to choose if you're the hero. Sometimes the journey chooses you.
Like the beginning of Ocarina of Time, you get the fairy just going to wake him up. It's like, hey, a big magic tree wants to talk to you, and you got to go save the world.
Go. Don't ask questions. Just go. The building's on fire. Grab the fairy and go.
Listen.
Dude, many people have suffered through Navi the fairy just yelling at you, going, listen, just over and over. It's like, God. Nintendo was starting to get bombarded with these questions. Like, well, what order should I play these games in? Because a lot of people like chronology. They like to be able to start from the beginning of something and go. We've seen tons of timelines put out for things with Marvel and DC. We've seen the Star Wars timelines. We kind of put exactly in a spot, right, where everything's going to be.
I think the next game could answer a lot of big questions about Breath of the Wild and things we don't know about.
Hopefully.
I hope so.
Hopefully. Nintendo doesn't exactly have the best track record. They love to play coy. They really,
I feel like the franchise is due for some kind of newer, not like super new, but like this is a new story that they can develop.
Where did this all begin? Where are we going with this? So I feel like Nintendo was somewhat forced to create a timeline. Nintendo put out an official encyclopedia all about the Legend of Zelda. Within that book is a timeline. They basically laid it out for us. When this book came out, Breath of the Wild was just about to be released. So that's as far as this goes. They started to explain where the story began, and we found out that Skyward Sword was the start of all of it. We found out that Minish Cap on the handheld on the Game Boy was the next in the line. It was like, okay, that's really interesting. We end up finding out that Four Swords, which was a weird entry on the GameCube, was part of the chronology. That kind of blew people away because this game seemed like more of a side spin-off than anything else.
Oh, Matt, real quickly, this Four Swords is the Game Boy version one. It's the one that came as a double game with Link to the Past for the Game Boy Advance.
Ah, okay. I was always kind of thinking this was the GameCube one.
The GameCube one is Four Swords Adventure, and you'll see it farther down the timeline.
Ah, good call. See,
that's cool. You can kind of see the split cover.
I think I have the Link to the Past with the Four Swords as the other game. and I've never played Four Swords simply because it requires multiplayer. I believe.
Multiple players. Yeah.
I can't play it. You know.
Yes.
Some of these are like the Yoshi's Island of the franchise. Where
Yeah.
like, not everybody beat Yoshi's Island. Not everybody played Four Swords.
Then we get into Ocarina of Time, and we're hearing about the Sacred Realm becomes the Dark World, and we're talking about Ganondorf becoming the Demon King Ganon. You know, Ganon being the big villain we met in the original game, and you know, he was this big like pig monster, and then we see him in Ocarina of Time, and he's a dude. He's just some guy. And then this is where things get funky. The end of Ocarina of Time.
Are there 2 endings to Ocarina of Time?
Technically,
Is this like a KOTOR where you can go good or bad? Come on, let's...
you can't play the 2 endings because there's only one ending to the game. But so people who think about it as certain rules of time travel or maybe multiverse, this is where they threw other questions at Nintendo. And that's where this timeline gets wonky, because the way people came at Nintendo about this, they were like, well, because as fans, we got real sweaty on this. And so Nintendo had to make a choice. It was
the internet era made people sweaty. Shut the front door.
Oh, yes. So sweaty. There isn't enough deodorant in the world to handle this amount of sweat. You beat Ocarina of Time. It involves time travel. Spoiler alert. You start the game as young boy, kid Link. You end up jumping through time 7 years. When you beat the game, your reward is that you get sent back 7 years to your childhood. The Sweaties got in on that, and we're like, well, what happened? What happens then to that other world where now Link disappeared? It was technically 2 endings to the game, and we didn't know it. But fans got real sweaty on this. So we have 2 timeline breaks, actually 3.
I was going to say, because there's 2 timelines where he goes back as a child. One where he warns Zelda, and the other where he just disappears from history.
Yes.
So
that's where
GG's,
gets
Nintendo.
real crazy. So this gets broken up into 3, right? Yeah, chilling. This is where this is going to hurt our brains here real quick. It's hard to even speak about this.
My brain has been broken by this so many times.
Angry Canadian, take it over.
Yeah, sure. If you want me to, I understand this
Literally.
pretty well.
Oh,
Literally,
you know what? If that's the
I would
case,
love
then
it.
Angry Canadian, please take the baton.
That's what I
If you want to
suggested.
explain this, let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's start with the easiest one. So if you were to play Ocarina of Time and you get to the end and you fight Ganondorf and Link gets defeated, we branch off to what is known as the fallen hero timeline, which is that left column you see there. And so what happens in there is we have Link to the Past, and then Oracle of Ages and Seasons, and Link's Awakening. Now, Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons and Link's Awakening supposedly are the same Link. All 3 games, it's the same Link. And then later on, we have the first 2 Zelda games. So you just have to remember, if you were to play Ocarina of Time, and let's say you die, you get defeated, that splits off and creates the Fallen Hero timeline, and then those games fit into there.
You know,
now, where it gets
the craziest thing, because you get Link in that timeline, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, that's where the original Legend of Zelda lands?
Yep.
And then Link.
yeah, that's weird.
So that's where your brain breaks the first time.
Yep. And so now this is where it could get a little tricky. So with the original ending, which is we all played it and we beat the game, what happens is, Link gets sent back in time to his child age, and that's where it creates the this middle column here with Majora's Mask. Because remember, Majora's Mask is a direct sequel to Ocarina of Time, and you're playing as that same Link. Twilight Princess follows that, and there's a lot of references to Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask in Twilight Princess. Specifically, spoiler, if you know who the hero Shade is, which is the skeleton warrior you fight in Twilight Princess, that teaches you some hidden skills, Let's just say he's an important character in Ocarina of Time. After that is Four Swords Adventure, which is the one that I told you earlier, which is basically, it's not a direct sequel of the original game. It's just another situation where you have to use the sword that splits them into four. Yeah, so that's the middle column. So once again, Link beats Ganon. Zelda sends him back to when he's a kid, and then he's continuing his adventure with Majora's Mask. Now, this is where it gets weird. I think, if I remember correctly, this is referring to when Link gets sent back as a kid, the Zelda that stays there, that timeline that's created, the 7 years in the future, that is that timeline. The world that's saved at the end of Ocarina of Time creates this new timeline that starts off with Wind Waker and Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks.
The time of prosperity, Hyrule was at peace for a long time, but then, and the intro of Wind Waker explains it, that this massive flood happens to the land of Hyrule, and everything is covered in ocean, and it creates this new version of Hyrule that's basically all underwater with just a few places above water. And anything that got buried by the water has now become legend in itself, because this takes place years. This is like generations have passed. So we don't have we're back to a kid Link. It's like a new descendant. Or actually, he wasn't a descendant. They had like a tradition in this village.
It's a tradition, yes.
I think it's just when you turn 12 or
It was a coming of age gift.
Yeah, okay.
It's a coming of age gift.
Can I jump in with a question?
Yeah.
Because this split between the two successful eras or the two successful endings of Ocarina of Time, I've never been quite clear on them. So in the first one, you get sent back as a child, and it's assumed that everything that happens in Hyrule without Link is what happens in that, without adult Link protecting it, is what happens in that middle column. Am I correct?
So that middle column is you go back in time to like the beginning of Ocarina of Time, like the game, right, and you meet Zelda, and then you tell her I guess you tell her the adventure you went on, and then you guys stop Ganon from getting the Triforce, and then that's when you start. It does all those games in the middle with Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess, whereas the adult one it's like you get that cutscene right with Zelda sending Link back in time, and you're up in like the sky. Pretty much, if you just didn't follow Link back in time, but you followed Zelda right there in that cutscene, and that's where the Wind Waker game and the Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks come after. You're in that world, her timeline, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, where like Link is no longer part of that world. I
guess I know that there's some causality or some relationship. I just feel like I get them confused, and I think one is the other and vice versa. You know what I'm saying? I guess I feel like Nintendo could have done a better job explaining exactly the conditions for each of those two successful timelines, because they've always confused me at least a little bit.
It's one of those things where I don't think Nintendo ever expected nor intended to explain this.
No, they didn't want to.
It was kind of, it was just like every game was its own adventure. Yeah. And it's kind of doing your thing, but it wasn't.
You can reboot a franchise too many times, is what they're saying.
Yeah. True.
One too many.
So wait.
Uh-oh. Here we go.
His brain is melting under his hat right now.
So wait, I just had a stroke and I just woke up. Okay.
Yeah, well, hold on a second. If you think you're lost right now, Chillin is like, what the F are these guys talking about?
Okay.
My main problem with all of these kinds of games is I don't have that natural compass in my head that so many people seem to have. So I would just get lost and I'd get frustrated and I'd say, and then I'd get done.
Yeah, fair enough.
I have this feeling, Chillin, that you're exactly the type of consumer that Nintendo would like, where they're just like, don't ask questions, just enjoy it.
I didn't have any of these questions until we sat here today. That's why. Okay.
Right.
So you're telling me Scroll up a little bit on this. I got it. Or widen out so I can. So I can.
Yeah, let's get a.
I need the whole. I need the whole image. Okay. Okay. So you're telling me Ocarina of Time is like the breaking point.
That's the
Right.
breaking point.
Where
the
the
end
where
of
the
that
stream
game.
where
Your
the
death
stream
matters
flip.
more in that one than the other
Okay.
games.
So in that game, there are two endings. There is one ending that you play and one that we don't. Is that what I'm gathering?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Where did this hidden ending come from? Do we get to see it ever?
No. It's
Therein
a
lies the
hidden
confusion.
ending that the fandom
Created in their own
Sweaties
minds?
created in their minds and forced upon Nintendo.
Yes, that is correct.
So Nintendo has acknowledged this. They have
Pretty much,
acknowledged
yes.
this split
Yeah.
in timeline.
Pretty much, yes.
So the fandom forced the hands of the creator to create a split in the universe to make this all make sense. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
You're-
Okay. That is
One of us. One of us.
that is question number one. Okay, so that's I've been waiting. I've been taking
Oh,
notes.
if only we could make that happen
Okay,
with other
Okay,
franchises.
okay. So then hero so Link's defeated. Does he die? And then we go to like Link to the Past, and then so you're telling me the left column finishes with the OG games.
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, this is like you win, right? As you in Ocarina, you beat Ganon, you defeat him in that battle. And then they think everything's all hunky dory, and Zelda's like, okay, I'm gonna give you your childhood back. Boom, you vanish from this point forward because now you went back to your own timeline and you're gonna be a kid again.
And then this imaginary ending, alternate ending to okay, that is so Majora's Mask is a direct sequel to his childhood. So is this the same 7 years childhood between Link to the Past and Majora's Mask? Is this the same lateral time?
Yeah, he's back to 7 years prior child Link in Majora's
That's
Mask.
only if he loses.
No, that's if he won and he's got sent back to his childhood. So Majora's Mask is basically Link is I don't know if he was like on his way. He wasn't on his way home, but he was traveling after the fact.
He was in search of. They don't say specifically that it's Navi, but it's Navi. Like Navi
Yes.
left him
Yes.
at the end of Ocarina of Time.
So the middle column is if he doesn't get sent back in time.
I
No,
thought
no,
the
middle
middle
column
No, he
is
still does
did
get.
sent
He
back.
still does get sent back.
Does
This is middle column is you beat the game, you get sent back in time, and it follows this path.
follows Child Link again.
Yeah.
Okay.
but without Ganon.
It starts to like kind of jump in generations here because there's a bunch of time
Yeah.
in between Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess, and then the same, even more time between Ocarina of Time and Wind Waker.
My question is, how is the defeat Ganon and gets his childhood back column on the left not
Middle.
Middle.
no,
That's
the left.
middle.
I mean, it says the hero is defeated. So that's what I'm saying. It's the wording to this is kind of sus on those lines because it should be the hero is triumphant. You get your childhood, right?
No,
Your 7 years disappeared. I'm so confused.
I think that's the middle one. The hero is defeated, basically, and anyone feel free to correct me if I'm wrong because I'm sure I am in some areas. But the hero is defeated basically if you are unable to defeat Ganon at the end of Ocarina of Time for whatever reason, then he is able to run roughshod and create this particular timeline of events without you there to stop him.
Right.
Hmm.
Okay. So. Okay. Yeah. So that's not a reward. That's almost like a punishment.
That's a if Link dies in this game, then this timeline is what gets created, and these other games.
Okay. See, and that makes so much more sense.
Yeah, it was a whole like what if scenario that this again was never. This was not Nintendo's intent.
Right. That's why it's so confusing.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
It wasn't intended to happen.
To this day, it's still confused, and it took a long time for this timeline, this version of it, to even be printed in any official form, because this was actually put out by Nintendo. What we're looking at right here,
Right.
The original version of this was just fans posting it on like Reddit and whatever else. Like, this was literally born from internet sweat.
Well, and it's complete. I love that it's completely backward storytelling. Right? I mean, really. I mean, the last two games on the column on the left are the first two we played. Again, you have no idea why you're doing it, but you're just doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
It's a Star Wars
very
screwed up.
unique thing that happened in the world of gaming. This whole thing existing is an anomaly. It just, because then when you get to the end of the whole timeline, the fact that, like, this is what broke my brain, was the fact that the original two games are at the end of a timeline. I'm like, okay, now my brain is officially melted and I'm broken. This ends here, but it's expanding as we speak, because now Breath of the Wild exists, and we're getting its direct sequel, Tears of the Kingdom.
So
And
are
we
all the
know-
games I grew up with basically just a what if scenario?
Yeah, actually, yeah, pretty much.
Yes. Yes.
Cool.
What
So
we
it-
grew up with was a what
you
if
can
scenario.
technically say that about all games.
So
couldn't you?
I'm all the games I grew up with were just dreams that Link had, basically.
Here we go, Link to the Past, yeah. Well, Link's
they're all-
Awakening is quite literally a dream.
I wouldn't say they were dreams.
You're not wrong, yeah.
But yeah, Link's Awakening is technically a dream.
I mean, I guess probably, at least for me, the easiest way to think of this is in terms of Marvel, and just say this is all multiverse Zelda. You know, like different timelines, different realities. You know, it can all exist, and it all doesn't necessarily exist. You know.
I mean,
So
So many-
Ganon is king.
Yeah, Ganon is king. He's
We would like to think he is. Yes.
Rex Wing's like, my brain hurts.
Yes. Exactly. And
I mean, I didn't look. I mean, I played
Right.
all these games all my life, right? All my gaming life since I was little on the NES with gold cartridge games. I played this stuff my whole life. I have been blindly unaware to this connection to all, because again, you just play the game. I don't ask questions. When it comes to Zelda, you just pick up your sword, you grab your shield, and you say goodbye to whoever's in the house, and you go. That's it. It's cool he got a horse. It's cool he's got a pirate ship. It's cool he's got all these cool toys. But man, I was blindly unaware that Majora's Mask was the true timeline, so to speak.
Well, let me blow your mind some more.
Oh, here we go. Do it.
So actually, this is not confirmed, because Nintendo, they take their time to do this. People are theorizing that Breath of the Wild is actually all three timelines converging into one point.
Oh my god, don't
Yeah.
tell me that.
Because
No,
if you look at it, like
yeah.
Zelda Battle World.
Go on.
because if you think about it,
Continue.
Breath of the Wild, Breath of the Wild has 4 races in there: Zora, the Rito, the Goron, and the Koroks are in there. The humans are in there, and Wind Waker has the Koroks, and but Wind Waker doesn't have technically the Zoras, because they evolved into the Rito.
Right.
And then also with Twilight Princess, is a continuation of Ocarina of Time, so you have the Goron and the Zoras there, but you don't have the Koroks. And actually, the Kokiri kids are like gone, and like Skull Kid is the only person that's remaining from there. So people are just theorizing that, oh, maybe it's just a funnel, right? It's all funneling. All the games are funneling to Breath of the Wild, because you have these 4 races living together that technically never lived together in the other games.
And isn't it like the Lionels or the race that are unique to the defeated hero timeline or something like that?
Oh, I'm not familiar with that, but that would make sense.
Yeah.
I would have to look into that.
I've watched quite a few videos on this kind of theorizing, and I still don't understand it all. So
it gets crazy.
It sounds like Nintendo needs to make another movie. What it sounds like. It sounds like, I mean, if Super Mario Brothers is their first toe dipping into the new space of movies, and it's been a success from what I understand, making grown men cry in the theater. It sounds like there's some, like Nintendo's got some splaining to do. Like you got some splaining to do. You gotta find a way to piece this stuff together. Like you really, like, I understand you wrote this nice multiversal idea, but I need some more.
I think a Zelda movie would actually be a whole other timeline in itself.
Oh
like
God.
I feel like that would branch it up again.
Unless you went really meta with it.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
If you think about what's in Breath of the Wild, because you can find remnants in ruins of places from throughout the franchise. There's, you can find the wrecked Lon Lon Ranch from one game, but then you can find pieces of things that were in another game that technically they didn't connect because they're two different timelines.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that's the, Nintendo's intent is, here's an adventure for you to be the hero, and we're going to throw Easter eggs in there for you to, have fun and find these things.
Right.
But fans, we
want order.
Yeah,
we want order. We want to understand sequence. Yeah.
Fans get really crazy with some things where we get really in depth, and we kind of make, I know not everybody always likes this term, but a lot of people make their own headcanon with a lot of things, and we kind of think about how these stories could play out, how we would like to see it play out. In the case of Legend of Zelda, fans got really sweaty into this, to the point where, I know it blew your mind, Obsession, but yeah, fans, they made the creators kind of bend the knee, like, you know what? Let's give you what you want, whether it makes sense or not, because we can stare at that timeline all day and still come out of it scratching our heads like, well,
at the same time, it's like these creators have to understand that, like, you are creating characters that are connected, and the stories have Easter eggs. Like, you are putting the story in front of us. You're presenting us with the questions. Like, we have to ask them. It's not our fault.
Scotty Hawk, are you saying that with great power there must come great responsibility?
Actually, if you're gonna set the bar here, I'm gonna reach for it. You know what I mean?
Well played.
But honestly, I think that people wanting some kind of a clear chronology and just like this kind of order in this particular IP universe, whatever you want to call it, like, really speaks to just how much people love and identify with this kind of storytelling, basically. And like, the fact that this question has persisted for so long, despite Nintendo's extreme desire not to answer it, like, I think that just says a lot, that people love this and they want to understand it as completely as possible.